So, yeah, I think we are good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about speaker roles, because from now on, we want to get to a point where we have 3 people on each side of the podium, and each person has a specific role. We are giving actual 3 complete claims, not one person giving 1.5 and another person giving the same 1.5. We want to get to everybody absolutely looking like a team again. But to do that, everybody's got to do their job. But you guys don't know what those jobs are. I mean, this has been on the wall for a while now, but we haven't talked to you about it, and that's okay. It's not anybody's fault. It's just a matter of we have to teach you guys so many things. We have 45 minutes to do it, and we have to keep moving. So, and you guys have been busy on CERs. So today we're going to talk about the most important speech of the round, or at least to start a round. Make sure we have a good debate, which is the first constructive speech, because you will all do a first proposition speech. I guarantee it. In fact, half of the speeches at the tournaments, your team will be responsible for a first proposition speech. That's a lot. That's 50%. Okay. Now, granted, there are some students that are better at first proposition speeches than other students, which is why when you develop your team dynamics, you might actually figure out who's the best person at presenting an idea, who's the best person at listening and responding and attacking, who's the best person at summarizing. And those answers to those questions are going to better help you come up with a system in which you guys can have better positions. So the first thing you do in a first proposition speech is you have to introduce the topic. Never, at this level, you guys are what, 7th and 8th grade, right? You guys should not be writing essays that start off with, my thesis is, my thesis is drugs are bad. Okay. All right. You're not going to start your thesis off like that. You're going to start with some type of an introduction, teaser, or hook, something that talks about a little story about a thing that happened. You're just going to find a way to intrigue the audience. And then you're going to say, because of that, it made me think of this. And then you say, and this is why I believe that the U.S. should, hamper down and punish more drug users. Or this is why, because of these reasons, this is why I believe the United States should abolish the Electoral College. All right. So you have to set up the motion, because the motion is the thesis. And unlike any other essay you ever have to write, this case, the thesis is handed to you on a silver platter. You just have to set it up and then say it. So the intro is the setup, and we'll do some activities later on about writing some good intros. But this is where your language arts and writing classes are going to help you set up a really good intro, and you're in good hands with that. So I'm really not worried about it. So I want to move on to the next piece, which is, of course, the modeling. And this is the most important thing that we're going to talk about today. This is why you have the sheets in front of you. And the deal is this. We want to make sure that we know what we're talking about and what we're not talking about. And the orange sheet in front of you gives you an example of 2 kids arguing about what the best NBA team is. All right. And you'll notice that both of them make a convincing case, but at the end, I don't know where you stand. It doesn't really matter. What matters is it depends on the framework from which you're looking at this conversation. One person is arguing what the best team in the NBA is currently, and the other person is arguing who is the best team historically. All right. And there's a difference. And in a conversation, things can go awry all day, and that's okay. But in a debate, if they go awry, it's because the first proposition speaker didn't do their job. Okay? You have to set up and say what we are talking about and what we're not talking about. That's what the second and third underlined line is that Ms. Watermeyer underlined there on the wall. What are we talking about and what are we not talking about? You have an example. I believe it's on the back page of the orange sheet, where it says there's 2 speeches. It gives you speech version 1 and speech version 2. All right, and it goes into how you can make it longer, how you can make it shorter. But the longer version defines some terms. And when we say defining terms, this is when we say what we are talking about. So if you have that as a guide to kind of show you that when it comes to a motion like all prohibitions to use on performance-enhancing drugs in sports should be removed. It's up to the debaters to say, are we talking about pro sports, college sports, all sports, Little League, Pee-wee? What are we talking about here? You have to say we are talking about all sports, or we're only talking about pro sports. We're only talking about international Olympic sports. The debaters have to explain what we're talking about, and they've got a little bit of freedom with that. When it comes to be removed, you have to explain how they're going to remove them. Okay, you can't just wave the wand and say they'll be removed. It'll be okay. It's not like we're going to cancel this trade agreement and all of a sudden we're going to have jobs. Like, you have to explain how that's going to happen. All right. And then all prohibitions. You have to explain what those, in this case, you wouldn't be coming up with your own idea of a prohibition. You would be talking about what the current prohibitions are. You would say that you could be banned from the Olympics. That's a prohibition. The NBA and the NFL and the Major League Baseball will suspend you for up to a season if you do these things, or even exile you from the league. Those are what prohibitions look like, and we want to get rid of those prohibitions. So you have to define the things in the motion. The good news is, if you're ever wondering where to start, sometimes the words you have to define, the things you have to explain, are right in the motion. And luckily, Ms. Watermeyer likes to do the thing where she underlines it for you. So the good news is, many of the things you have to define in modeling are underlined in the motion when Ms. Watermeyer puts it on the board. That's the good news. The bad news is, sometimes there are things that are left out. And you have to figure out that, like, for instance, with the motion on the page that you're looking at, which says consumers have a duty to buy locally, it doesn't tell you which consumers. So do you have to explain, is this national? Is this regional? Is this within the state? Is it within the community? You as a debater have to figure out what information was omitted. All right, and then you have to plan accordingly. All right, so unlike the motion 3, where it tells you exactly which country we're talking about. All right, motion 2 doesn't tell you if we're talking about tax dollars or we're talking about public donations. You know, because isn't that not is when somebody's in the public and they donate, is that a private donation or a public donation? I can kind of see it both ways. It's generally thought of as a private donation, but you know, what happens if you put your money into a union and then the union puts some money towards, or you're in a political action committee and they put some money towards space exploration? Is that public funding? It came from the public. I don't know. And because I don't know, I'm hoping a debater tells me as a judge, and that's your job. So we've got 12 minutes left. I know I talked for quite a bit of time, but we had to cover a lot of ground to make sure that from now on, we know what our first constructive speaker is supposed to do before they started getting into their signposting and their claims and then tying it all together in 5 minutes. But we had to make sure we knew what a POI was, and we had to make sure we knew what modeling was. What you have in front of you on the blue sheet is an example of a motion and some words that a debater, when they look at a motion, they're like, oh, when I give this speech, I better make sure that I define some words. I'm not asking you to define the words. I'm asking you to tell me why you should. So on the very first example, the motion is, what do we got here? The students should be allowed to grade their teachers, and those grades should in part have an impact on a teacher's continued employment. So I'm not asking you to define everything. I'm asking you to tell me which things you would define. And in the example, the person that filled this out said they would want to define students, they would want to define grades and impact. And so for students, they didn't say a student is a kid who learns things in a building from a teacher. No, they didn't say that. They said that I need to explain what grades we're talking about so that everybody knows what kind of students we're talking about here. And so on and so forth. You guys can read the example. So again, you've got 11 minutes. So right now, this is a pretty short assignment. You just got to write a word that you think is important and then tell me why you should define it, not how to define it. If you have any questions, raise your hand. Ms. Watermeyer and I can help you.
You guys are clear your seats. We're looking at number 1, school uniforms should be required in public schools. That's the exercise we're looking at right now.